What's up, girl?
Gosh, I was hoping we could
It's so
just
loud.
avoid any kind of feministic reference, but whatever.
The spirit of Josh resides.
Well, we are back. Episode 54.
Nope.
Well, we can drop this in episode 54.
73.
You know what? Josh just makes up episode numbers, so I'm going to make up episode numbers. Welcome to episode 396.
Number F.
Brought to you by Malk, now with vitamin R. Today, someone in the news who's male, whose tweets get a lot
Are
of
you
attention.
assuming his gender, bro?
Well, he might not identify as male. Who appears to be biologically male, whose tweets get a lot of attention, and who wields a lot of power. Who do you think that is?
Donald Trump.
It is not Donald Trump. Since I'm leading the show today, no Donald Trump talk. Not that we can't talk
Thank
about
God.
Today we're talking about none other than the superhuman himself, Elon Musk. He's been in the news recently because he's always announcing something ridiculous.
He needs to come out with a musky body spray.
He probably already
I think
Elon
Elon
Musk
Musk is one radioactive explosion away from being a supervillain,
Yeah.
like Doctor Doom or something.
He meant well.
You have to think that he might be like, he's probably at least run the numbers to like how much an Iron Man suit would cost him to make. You know what I mean? Because like there's also is it Adam or whatever who's also like a rich billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just like, if you're also a rich billionaire and you see rich billionaires do cool superhero things, like, could I do that? You know, like you're a Batman kind of
So
deal.
like,
Well, that's that. Okay, I'll start with a story that's most superhero-like. So he has an office in LA, SpaceX does, and an article on Bloomberg says that he was just complaining about the commute just to get to his office. I guess he's not allowed to like fly one of his many helicopters there. I guess, ironically, the SpaceX building does not.
life is hard for Elon Musk.
So
Well, SpaceX is right by the Hawthorne Airport, isn't it?
it is. It's by LAX. It's
that's
by
the
LAX.
problem.
So he decided that he is going to fund his own underground tunnel road to reduce traffic around the SpaceX complex.
God bless him.
So there is an old project, some kind of underground project that was in LA, and he is going to build and design a tunnel boring machine. According to a tweet from the end of last year, he said, "This traffic is driving me nuts. I'm going to build a tunnel boring machine and just start digging."
That's the kind of idea you have while drinking a beer with a friend after work, after an upsetting day. You know what? I'm just going to dig a hole. I'm going to dig a hole right through this problem.
Oh, man. Okay, so here's the deal. So people were like, within an hour, the project had a name. It's called the Boring Company, like a boring machine. Boring is what we do. 2 hours passed, and he said, another tweet, "I'm actually going to do this." So people weren't sure. But he's also a serious person. So according to this article, Musk was not joking, and that's what he tells me as we sit in the SpaceX office. For years, he's been thinking about tunnels, both a personal fascination because they'd be an important component of the Hyperloop. So he tells that LA traffic jam is just getting so bad that he acquired a domain name, boringcompany.com, which that's where we all start with companies. So come on, Elon.
Yeah.
We all start by buying the domain name.
And for people who,
But hold on.
faithandwhatever.com, check it out.
He also appointed a lead for the project, Steve Davis, who's a senior SpaceX engineer. And he... Okay, well, that's where he stops. So, maybe not stop. So what do you guys think? Super villain or superhero when you just want to start digging into the earth?
that's more supervillain.
As
Right.
long as he's not digging to the center of the earth.
Or he might just find like the great mole man down under there and unleash a new like culture of villains
But
against
this
us.
is why I love Elon Musk, because he gets an idea, because we all get ideas, but then he like actually starts doing it.
Yeah.
He's like, he has this idea, and an hour later he's got a company.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, like, I know his companies make a lot of business, but I know, like, startups also sometimes are short on cash, and I don't quite know how that works, but he doesn't seem to have that problem.
Right.
Like,
Well,
he can just...
wasn't he a founder of PayPal?
He was, yeah. Oh, no, yeah, he was a part of PayPal. Boring Company has no full-time employees yet, nor does it have any clear business model, though government contracts will almost certainly play a role. Musk says the tunneling business is a bit like aerospace industry, which he shook up after starting SpaceX. Rockets hadn't changed much, but now he brought that to a $1.6 billion contract to NASA. The cool thing I like about this is that if it's not a government-run company, that the projects may actually take less than 15 years to complete.
Yeah.
That's a little a big dig reference
Well,
there.
I think I mean, maybe I'm just being a downer here, but I get nervous about the idea of underground tunnels in a place that's known for having lots of earthquakes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, LA is guaranteed to have an earthquake between a 6 and a 9, like any given year. Like
Right.
it does happen. It will happen.
Yeah.
And that would make me feel weird about using tunnels for extensive travel.
I don't know the physics, but I wouldn't be surprised if that tunnels are no more or less dangerous than building. You know what I mean? Like I know that it seems you're underground, so things can fall on you, but maybe being in the
You
ground.
get covered though. I mean, getting covered by
Okay, granted, it'd be
yeah.
better than worse than standing in a field by itself. So here's the thing about the tunnel project is that Musk has gone on statement to say that he doesn't think flying cars are viable. At least not on his. Apparently Mars is viable. Anyways, we'll get there.
Well, it's not viable because at least in the U.S. we will not allow that airspace to be used. Like we have strict regulation over.
It's not viable because people can barely drive.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. A computer would absolutely have to do the flying.
Right.
But he says that maybe tunnels could help kind of, meet that gap, fill that gap.
I'm
between
glad somebody's trying to do something about the traffic because it's ridiculous around here.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
bad. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, next story on Mr. Musk, which is a really cool superhero name if you're looking for one, Elon.
Mr. Musk.
Is so the we all know, if you don't know this, Musk really wants to go to Mars. He says
So bad.
that it's
You want to hear they have candy bars.
he says it's a necessity that humans go to Mars, which I can see in like dystopian sci-fi future that we do need to be a multi-planet species.
Right.
But he thinks that needs to happen like soon. So I don't know if he knows something.
Let's go ruin another planet.
I don't know if he knows something that we don't about what's happening in Earth's
When
future.
he entered the Billionaires Club, they revealed to him some information we don't
yeah,
know about.
Yeah, maybe they did. Yeah. What's one of the plots of some of those things that like the Earth's core stopped spinning, and so now storms are coming? I don't know. So a couple years ago, Elon Musk said SpaceX will land a human on Mars in 2022. Then a couple of things happened. I think one of them has been their really successful reuse of the rockets. So he changed it to 2018.
Oh, jeez.
It's ridiculous. Just recently, this week, they announced that they will put a human on Mars in 2020.
That's amazing.
And when will they get him back?
Yeah. He's going to be there to stay, folks.
Changed their timeline for a manned mission to Mars by a couple of times, but recently stated they would definitely launch their lander. I guess that means human lander by 2020. Do you guys think we could be on Mars in 3 years?
If we really wanted to, sure.
The question is, who wants to be the first one to try
They can
this
send
out?
I think
person to
he's going to be
Mars
You don't
now.
think he's going to be the first one?
No.
They could send a person to Mars. I think the problem is getting them back.
Why is that? Just the fuel?
Yeah.
Plus the amount of
And the
time,
time,
in
yeah.
radiation space.
Well, the time is only about
Was it a
18
year and a
months.
half?
18 months.
Yeah.
Which
So, I
that's-
mean, they could get there.
yeah, so what getting back would mean the fuel, the return trip fuel.
Also, that's 3 years of travel.
Yeah. Well, how long? Yeah, I mean,
That's a long time in a small space.
Yeah.
someone's gonna do it though, just to be the first person. I wonder who would be the first, just to.
Maybe is where VR will come in. If you got to spend 3
That's
years
true.
on a ship,
That's a good thought, Chris. Never thought about that. But I mean,
but the lag will
also,
kill you.
I mean, we're still working with how do you protect the human body against the radiation you get in real space.
Yeah.
Once you leave like the planet Earth a certain distance, the radiation apparently is.
What's the
very,
longest
very bad.
someone's been in space? It's just over a year.
I think somebody was on the space station for over a year.
But you're probably
I'll
still
look it
within like the ionosphere kind of deal. You're still getting protected. Is kind of what you're saying. But like interstellar. Okay, that's not
Right.
interstellar. Interplanetary space has much more radiation.
Right. That radiation, like going to the moon and back, you don't come into the radiation that we're talking about. That would be between us and Mars.
Yeah.
437 days.
To Mars one way.
No, it was the longest in space.
Oh, that's longer than I
Somebody's been in
thought.
space.
Wow, that's pretty long. I think it's really cool. I remember growing up in the 80s, the moon landing obviously was before my time, but the 80s was not the worst time for NASA. There was lots of cool stuff happening, some deep space stuff, some Mars stuff. But then like I got into my teenage years and I was like, okay, we're not going back to the moon. Like we're not. Like I will not see a human like step foot on another planetary body in my lifetime. It's
Right.
like it just not seem like investments. A lot more, which makes sense, right? I mean, you want to send probes, you want to send, You don't want to send humans
going
to do highly
to the moon
dangerous
was a
things.
great scientific experiment, but what really drives us forward is either necessity or consumerism. And there is no necessity for the moon, and there's nothing to dig out of the moon to sell.
Well, except that Russia might get there first.
Right.
That was the necessity.
Right. But but that was like once we got there, that issue was resolved.
Well,
right?
we're here.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So like the thing about a place like Mars is like, and some other nearby bodies is like the amount of precious metals they may have, the gases that might be in their atmosphere that can be harvested.
Helium.
But don't you think the first person there, you're still decades away from returning
Yeah, with helium.
profitable amounts of things? But you're right. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. It's things to work out for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what drives it, right? Once you realize, for example, there's all that talk about NASA like kind of aiming to get this asteroid that's got like a ridiculous amount of like money
Platinum or
of like
something.
material in it.
Yeah.
It's like once the right company realizes that's out there and we want it, that's when we start making great strides. Even if we don't accomplish the goal, we make great strides that will maybe go into other goals,
Yeah.
right?
And I think we are. I think with SpaceX and with the other one that's not as good, Amazon.
There
guy.
are already asteroid mining companies, by the way.
Do like startups and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but the cool thing is that about 10 years ago, I thought, well, maybe in my lifetime I'll see us go, like maybe in my 50s and 60s I'll see us walk on Mars. But now it seems like, I mean, I'll be the first to say, I don't think we'll get there in 2022. But if we did, that'd be awesome. Or no, 2020 is what they're saying now. Now we're talking about in just a few years,
Yeah.
we will have some
3
sweet
years.
8K video of some guy walking on Mars being streamed to all of our mobile devices and or
Mobile
VR
devices in
headsets.
3 years will just stream it to your brain.
And how many people
owned by Musk,
and how many people, especially in the internet age, will not believe it, right? There's a lot more people than you would think don't believe we ever made it to the moon.
Yeah, you're right.
And now we live in an age where conspiracy is far more rampant.
Yeah.
So how many people won't actually believe we made it to
The
the
cool
moon?
thing is that someone, well, a couple things. There might be people alive who live on the Mars right now, who live on Mars, and maybe younger, who live either the most of their life or some of their life on Mars, who are already alive. But the person who walks on Mars or another planet for the first time, it might already be chosen, for all I know, and it's around. We gotta get that guy on the show before he goes, because after he
Start
goes,
grabbing random people.
after
Hey, you
he
may
goes,
someday be on Mars.
there's
Come
no
on
way
our
he'll go
show.
on Faith Whatever. But right now, so this is the call to the guy who's been chosen in that private meeting
Yeah.
with Elon. If you want to come on the show, and hey, we won't even air it till after you walk.
Yeah.
But we'll, you come on the show, we'll give you an energy drink, whatever it is that you
We'll
need.
buy you Taco Bell.
Yeah, Taco Bell,
Right.
up to $63.
Because you know
Anything
you can't
want.
take Taco Bell into space.
Yeah,
It's
so whatever.
true.
Yeah.
You don't
So-
know how valuable that Taco Bell is going to be when you can't have it anymore.
Last story of Mr. Musk. This one is not, well, it's kind of outlandish, and I don't know how to feel about it. I think people are very, very divided on this, and it seems to kind of ride that line between liberal and conservative. Elon Musk thinks that automation will force governments to introduce universal basic income.
That's been the big discussion lately, that automation so a lot of people blame, and I've probably been I've done this in the past too, blame NAFTA for the loss of many jobs in America. But the truth is, when you actually look at statistically and socially what happened in America, we lost maybe about 70,000 jobs to NAFTA, which sounds like a lot, but when you realize we make about 225,000 jobs a year, it's not that much.
Yeah.
A lot of the jobs disappeared due to automation,
Yeah.
right? And and especially as certain like economic realities are pressing companies to make tough decisions, such as like raising the minimum wage up to $15 an hour. There's a lot of companies that will just, I mean, whether you deserve the $15 an hour or not, that's not the question. But the reality is they'll just choose to let a robot do it instead of you. Like
Right.
you're seeing a lot of fast food restaurants play around with having just flat screens that you walk up to, and there's no person there. You just use the flat screen to order your food, right? And then they have a minimal crew there that's far more affordable overall to make the food because they don't have to hire many people. And as much as they can use computers, they will.
Right. And people really aren't upset about that because they still want their burgers to cost $3.99.
Right.
They don't want them to cost $12.99.
Exactly.
So even though they're all for getting people work. They're not willing to pay twice as much for a cheeseburger.
One of the Carl's Jr.'s in Los Angeles, that's a burger chain in this area of this part of America.
Or Hardee's if you live.
Yeah, Hardee's in another part of America, same company. Carl's Jr. Reacting to LA itself, the minimum wage went up faster than it did in California. And this LA Carl's Jr., all the combos were $10.99 and $11.99 a piece. I'm like, I'm just not buying this. I'm sorry.
Is that a lot? I haven't been to a fast
That's a lot of money for Carl's Jr.
That's
Okay,
a lot
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for
But
Carl's Jr.
I would
I like
imagine, I'm
Carl's,
just guessing
right?
the normal one is like
I could go for some
Eight-
Crisp cut fries right about
Exactly.
now.
So I have a couple thoughts. One, I should have done my homework. I really don't understand how you can afford to give people universal basic income. I hear that you're not giving everyone $100,000. You're giving everyone $25,000 so they can feed themselves and not be on the streets, and they have to make up the rest. But I still don't understand how we can afford. Who pays for that?
Logistically.
Yeah, who literally pays for that? I mean, you are you going to tax the rich at 80%? No one's going to want to be
That's what
rich.
you'd have to do.
Everyone's going to leave the countries that have universal basic income, so no one can pay for it. But I do think this is an inevitable reality. Chris, I'm curious what you think, because you're a big fan of skilled labor workforce, trade schools, which I think are very important, especially now. But those are probably the jobs that are at risk with automation.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them really aren't, because so far automation is really great at mindless repetitive tasks.
Right. Sure. Right.
But there's things like automation can't replace a mechanic.
I mean, probably not. I mean, probably
Yeah,
it probably could replace a third of them, maybe something like that, in the 50 years.
In 50 years, yeah. But I wonder if people, I've been seeing this a lot lately too, where automation's going to take all our jobs. I wonder if people said the same thing about the cotton gin.
Oh, well, didn't the cotton
Right.
gin
Yeah.
cause more jobs?
It,
More
but, I mean,
slaves,
it
a lot
took
of
away a
jobs.
lot of jobs. Or the same thing about the water wheel or any other
Right.
time that automation's been introduced into.
And what did we do with those?
Industry.
Did we just move the workforce into
Yeah,
higher
we've been moving.
skilled?
We've been moving more towards a service economy anyway, right?
Well,
I mean, we don't have that many manufacturing jobs left in the U.S.,
Yeah.
and that's where most of automation is.
Also, a lot of the adjustment to this happens at the ground level. We don't experience it, but our children will. I have two very young daughters, and I see how their education is being developed for them. And there's a huge emphasis now that never was on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Right.
Like in the elementary school level, they are pushing kids towards STEM and developing STEM skills. And that's
It's a really bad name, by the way.
but that's a response to where we are as a nation right now and where the jobs will be in 20 years. So that doesn't help you and I with our job situation, but my daughters, because of the way education is being now redirected, they will be prepared for a future where the jobs that would be lost to automation, they'll have alternative jobs and they'll be prepared for that.
So in some way, maybe we could mitigate some of the mass unemployment because maybe it'll be a slow transition, and the younger generation is prepared to work in industries that.
Well, it's the
higher.
middle group that gets screwed, is what it is, right? So it's like,
But is it? If it
it's the
happens
people
slow enough,
it's the
then-
people who are working now that are at risk at losing jobs. The generation that's coming up, they will adjust to a new job market. They will go to the jobs that are available. But it's like, for
Okay.
example, like there used to be a career for people who wanted to run elevators, right? They were the people that controlled elevators. And at some point, elevators became self-running, and all those people lost their jobs. The next generation didn't care about those jobs because they
Right.
didn't exist. They just moved into different jobs.
Right. Elevator
So
repair.
it's the people who, at the time that the jobs are going away, they're the ones who hurt the worst.
No, and I think
Yeah.
you're right, and I think you need some foresight. Like I wouldn't recommend, even now, going into being a truck driver,
Right.
because I don't think there's going to be, I think in 10 years, autonomous driving is going to take a lot of the truck driving.
That's true.
Which,
There
which for 10 years you can make good money for the next 10 years, or whatever good money is to you. But if you were expecting to do that for 50 years, and then you're going to be unemployed after 10, if that's your goal.
That's a problem. Yeah. Like you see the same thing with the equine industry, horse industry, right? There was once a bustling equine industry in America because people used horses for all kinds of tasks. And all those tasks disappeared, and now horses have been relegated to being a hobby.
Yeah, it's pretty much the way everything's gone though for the last 200 years.
Right.
So I think people freaking out about it now are being a little.
Well, the legitimate thing is when that change suddenly hit, a lot of people lost their jobs, and those people were probably permanently screwed. They probably didn't get a job that was nearly as good as the one they had. They probably had to adjust to having a lower income because they had spent 25 years in this industry and it's too hard to now retool for a new industry. But it's the generation that comes up after them that thinks nothing about horses. That there's no goals for working with horses other than hobbyists.
Yeah.
So the real pain is in the people who suffer the immediate change. The future will fix itself usually.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I tell all my students, especially the ones that have leaning towards technology and stuff, I'm like, go to drone school. Like learn how to program, build, design, repair drones. Because, I mean, they're already saying that's going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry and it's going to be able to hire, 390,000 people, and they look at me like I'm some crazy futurist, but I mean, you don't think Amazon's going to have a fleet of 2 million drones to deliver your Cheetos, flaming hot Cheetos, whatever you want at any time of the day?
That'd be awesome.
Now, this may not apply to you and I, but I wonder how many jobs the marijuana industry is going to grow. Right? Like, that's funny. I didn't mean that pun. But like
James, I'm not recommending my students.
No, absolutely not. Industry. But my point is, the marijuana industry.
But James, anyone?
Not just the growing of it or the selling of it, but the company is completely built around it, and all the jobs that those companies.
The pharmaceutical.
The green rush.
Right.
They're calling it already.
The green rush.
People who just work for those companies but do jobs unrelated to the product, right? Because companies have a lot of needs. That's going to bring an entire new industry as that legalizes, and it's there's a strong interest in all of America to use that product, and that's going to be a booming industry in the next few years. It is booming now, and every state that legalizes it, it booms again.
James, you have so much foresight. That's why I just don't get the Old Testament theology focus. But I'm just saying. But actually, there's some truth that humanities theoretically can't be automated. So the study of different types of humanities type studies.
Yeah, but to be fair, liberal arts colleges are suffering. I mean, I love the liberal arts. I love the humanities. This is where my passion is. So I say this with pain that's a shrinking industry. That's not a place to double down. That's not a place to start investing in now. The liberal arts industry, both as academics in college, but also the jobs that it puts people in, that's a lot of that's shrinking.
But they say... I know we're running a little bit long, but they say that kind of within the idea of the future, that when a lot of your basic needs are taken care of and automation taken care of, is that creative jobs and even jobs focusing on humanities type studies might be, I don't want to say most sought after, but they might be the fields that people move into who aren't working with science and technology. They're working to create better lives and have people be happier and have people understand each other better, have people studying human nature, making poetry, making art, making entertainment.
The patronage is it's returning to our culture. So there's a time when that patrons, meaning people with money, would use their money to fund those who could create.
Bach, most of the great Renaissance.
Right. Like Bach, for example, the great musician and writer of music, he didn't sell his music. Right, he didn't put out albums that were sold. He probably made some money on live shows, but what he was patronized. People with money who appreciated his music funded him to have a lifestyle so he could continue to make music, and that disappeared quite a bit with the age of industry in America and consumerism, but it's coming back around through things like Patreon and YouTube and things like this, where people are again using their money to fund creators of art and music. They don't have to sell their product. What they have to do is make the product, and people who appreciate the product just give the money.
Well, that's when you say humanities fields are shrinking. I look at those types of things.
Yes,
I meant traditional Patreon, humanities.
Right? Yeah. Right.
Well, great segue, James.
Speaking of Patreon, you can check back with us in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in and talking about Mr. Musk. We would love to have him on the show. So if you know him at all, please.
I mean, he probably doesn't have much better to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, when he's not digging a tunnel, taking
I got some ideas for him.
Changing the world. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to Faith and Whatever. As always, please check us out on everything at faithandwhatever.com. Please like and subscribe our videos. Make sure you're clicking the little bell next to the subscribe thing so you're getting notified when we drop videos. A great place to tune in is our Facebook page. Just search Faith and Whatever, where we're doing pretty much a daily update and questions and live videos, and it's very active, so please tune in. As always, check us out, Faith and Whatever, on Twitter.